Hello, everybody, and welcome to Casual Conversations. Today, we're going to be talking about AI and the impact that it has on video production. My name's Adam. I'm the COO of Casual, and I am joined by...
Hey everyone, I'm Lexi. I'm the Managing Director here in APAC, overseeing our offices in Sydney, Melbourne, and Hong Kong.
Hi, I'm Ollie. I'm the Managing Director of EMEA.
Hey everyone, I'm Lydia. I'm the Managing Director of Casual in the US.
Okay, and before we dive in, I just think it's worth mentioning that none of us here on this call are experts on AI. We run a video production company, but I just wanted to share the kind of conversation that we're having at the moment, some of our findings from digging into AI just a little bit, but also to kind of acknowledge that it's such a fast-moving field that some of this could all change by tomorrow. So, can't necessarily be held to anything that we say on this call when things are going as fast as they are in AI world. But to start with, I guess I just wanted to talk about some of the limitations that we found with AI. I guess there's a sense, thanks to things like ChatGPT and Midjourney and DALL-E, that AI, generative AI certainly, is this thing where you type something in, click the button, and the finished product comes out. And when it comes to something like a script, or when it comes to something like an image, that is what's happening with some of these AI tools. Why is video production different?
Video production is interesting because it brings together these disparate pieces of technology quite seamlessly. So currently, there's not a powerful enough kind of aggregator or the capability to kind of like integrate that technology seamlessly like an agency does. Where you might feed a project through from creative to production to post and color grade and sound design and so on and deliver this beautifully produced, an emotive piece of work. AI technology isn't yet able to do that.
When AI selects things, it selects imagery that's very on the nose. So if you're writing a script about a car driving through a desert, it will exactly put that into the timeline. Whereas a really creative edit or something slightly different, slightly more abstract, it doesn't do. So I think that's a really important point on how AI operates, is it will extract all the salient points from an interview, for example, but it won't think about how it makes you feel. And filmmaking is an emotive medium, and I think that's a really important thing that it doesn't yet do. What it's producing at the moment is very similar to a lot of the products that were already out there on the market, so turning around a very basic animation or a very, very basic stock edit. So it's not quite there.
Really, the very just on the nose one is ChatGPT and helping with script writing, right? I think for all of us, just putting words on paper or starting that first sentence of your creative deck or your script is usually the roadblock. So I think, using these tools to really help you with that first rough first draft to then really kind of piggyback off of and really start editing, I think will really change the game for creative.
As we say, I think if the expectations are for this to be a magic bullet, click go equals one video, then we're going to come up short. AI is going to have a huge impact on, as you say, Lydia, kind of different smaller stages within that process. And so that is the more useful way kind of at the moment to approach thinking about the AI in video production, is how do we use it on the kind of smaller bits of the puzzle rather than trying to generate the entire puzzle in one go.
Yeah, what's interesting about, I guess, the early stages of these technologies is really then the next step of like monetizing as well as integrating into current workflows, which I think for AI really is the next step for, these developers and technologists to sort of engineers to think about, right? I think while, for example, when Midjourney spits out an image of, say, like integrating, a photo of you with like a real life Pokemon, how do you then actually utilize that image and, be able to maybe turn it into this animated world that you would want to create? But at the moment, it's just literally spitting out that final product. And I think the next step is really for these companies to think about how do we integrate the product into, say, in Adobe, into, say, 3D Maya or whatever the tools that we filmmakers are using.
Can I input on that as well? Like there's some interesting bits coming out for obviously post-production with rotoscoping and improving those areas. But that also knocks over into production, because if you've got a focus puller that's doing a tracking shot and they miss their mark, then you might come back with some blurry footage. With AI, you can now knock that footage back into focus. So that is going to save a lot of time and a lot of people being shouted at the end of a shoot.
Just one thing I might add to that is, I guess, we're already using it. So in our production process, something like interview transcriptions or motion tracking, or chroma keying are some really obvious examples that we do incorporate every day in our process. And so that's more, there's this thought that it's disrupting the execution of like certain tasks as opposed to replacing creative thought. So yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the human, needs to wield the tool.
Generative AI around like DALL-E and producing style frames, that's really important. So if you think about producing 3D style frames at the moment, there's a lot of work that go into actually creating that time and money. And to be able to empower creatives, as Lid said with ChatGPT on the scripting side, to have that jumping off point, I think frees them up to have more creative thoughts and conceptualize lots of different things without then having to have the designers and everyone working into it at that initial stage. So I think it will free people up in terms of how much they can produce at that early stage as well in terms of the visuals.
Yeah, that's a good point. It also like streamlines the process as well, or just makes your teams a bit more nimble too. When we think about putting a sketch filter on an image and then putting all those images together as like a mock storyboard, in the past that would take probably days and weeks to do, but now as a producer or as a filmmaker, you can easily pull those together and make it look like a really nice storyboard. And now with AI and kind of being able to generate the shots that, you can't cull through stock footage to find, I think that would just, again, make the process a bit more streamlined.
As you've kind of all mentioned there, there are two types of AI. There's generative AI that's kind of produces something. So that's the kind of mid-journeys, the runways where, something new comes out the end that didn't exist before. But then there's also traditional AI, which is kind of algorithms, things that have been used for a long time to like analyze data or spot patterns. And if you think about, a lot of elements of pre-production and production, certainly there's a lot of administrative and repetitive tasks there that do rely on kind of pattern spotting and data and pulling together disparate sets of information. So when we talk about AI and video production, we don't just have to talk about, we've created this video out of kind of thin air. There's all these other things that are going to be impacted by it that will sit beneath the hood that clients will never see, but that we as a production company can utilize and pass those efficiencies on to our clients.
Oftentimes people's reservation about the emergence of AI is this fear of replaced jobs. I do think, perhaps the industry could start to structure costs differently and transparently. A copywriter's day might now be made up of, a 30-minute block of them prompting, and a 4-hour block of them finessing, and a decade of their previous experience, kind of getting to that point. So it is interesting about how we think about pricing. At the moment, labor rates are typically structured by the day. So I think we'll start to see perhaps that change and advance.
No, I think it's important to give a nod to the time and research that it takes to adopt a new technology, right? And what's really great about what we're doing at Casual is that like we're allowing folks to explore and learn different programs, and again, now different AI programs. And when we think about just ourselves as consumers, there is there's sort of a barrier to us, leaving a particular app and using a new platform because we're scared of that change, and we're also scared of the time it takes to that learning curve, right? Of really learning how to use this new platform. So I think with AI, like we sort of have to give a nod to the time it takes to really adopt the technology and really understand it, and then, figure out how to utilize it for, again, our best and most efficient use cases.
Yeah, and I think it's worth acknowledging that in filmmaking, we have always used technology progressing to tell human stories, and that is no different with AI. So user-generated content massively is going to disrupt everyone. Everyone has a very, good camera in their pocket these days, but look at the influencers that have come out and started creating incredible stuff with their phones and using CGI, and just, it hasn't in any way dampened the industry. If anything, it's lit a fire under it and created more content. Now, that could be a bad thing in that the content that comes out could be quite poor, but I think we should be embracing it as much as possible by using these tools, rather than being worried that there's going to be an impact on the number of jobs that will be around, because I actually think it will just, create more opportunities in the long run.
I guess I would just add that, when thinking about utilization and time, we can't help but think about pricing as producers. So I sort of link those two quite synonymously together, because, if it is taking less time, if the utilization is different, then we really are leaning on experience and creative storytelling, as Ollie keeps returning to. So I think it's putting a price on that value and experience.
I mean, I guess to kind of pull those thoughts together, if I'm one of our clients, I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh, Casual's using a bit of AI in their workflow. Will I get my video cheaper?
Give us a ring.
What's our response to that?
No. I think there's in some cases there might be, for example, like smart voices, what we've already been doing with our own digital innovation. We've been trying to use our internal teams and our technology to bring the cost down of because we want to work with certain clients who don't have the money for a in perpetuity buyout on the voiceover. So we've been trying to already come at it from a different angle to bring those costs down. So I think if there's a client that wants to work with us and there's a way we can bring the cost down using AI, we will. But that's not to say that the fact that we're using AI doesn't cheapen the service. And as we've been saying, it's the experience of making great films and the people that make great films. We've always put our importance on the people who actually create the films rather than the best camera in the world. So I don't think you'll see a huge impact in cost, but I do think you'll see an uptick in the creative and the production values that comes out the other end.
And at the other end of that conversation are our staff and video professionals around the world. And these are the people that probably are most aware and potentially fearful of kind of AI. If you're an editor, if you're an animator, if you're an audio engineer, what kind of conversation should we be having with our staff and in our recruitment as AI kind of develops? How do you think that is going to impact the people that are making these videos?
I think, as always, it's just letting people embrace the technology, right? And understanding it. I think that's the fundamental kind of reason why we fear things, is when we don't understand it. So, it's really important that we empower other filmmakers, our staff, people looking to come into Casual. We sort of, need to encourage them to explore these new technologies and really understand, how to use them and see if it is an important tool in their toolkit as they're creating for our clients.
Yeah, that's a great point. I guess also, creators are viewers too. So if you're in the industry, you're also the audience. What would you want to watch? So we're sort of making it better for all of us, for sure.
Just change lanes slightly. I mean, one of the areas that has been identified that will really get disrupted by AI is the idea of personalization, the personalization of content. What are you guys seeing out there at the moment, and how do you think that is going to develop over time?
So I've seen personalization, obviously, of facial recognition and billboards changing according to someone's expression. So I don't think it's a great leap to suggest that might come in for metrics for how people are responding to content on their laptops. Where I'm really excited is how AI is going to actually impact interactive content and gamification, and how we interact with those types of content. And say you start a film and you can then choose to turn it into an animation. That personalization, I think, could be really rich, really exciting.
Yeah, I think, and just generally, the volume of output, or like how to like handle that. So if we think about how we produce videos and having to create hundreds of deliverables, right, for various different platforms, languages, etc. So, how does AI impact that, right, when it's serving up very specific, targeted, segmented material to, say, if I'm watching, or if Ollie's watching, or Flexi. I'm just very excited and curious about the process of all that.
Yeah, we see a bit of that, real-time customization across like programmatic digital display. So it's about how that advances, I suppose, to, serve you in the way that you need to be served content. So it opens us up to spoken language and to accessibility as well, I suppose. So, creating a more inclusive society and building that kind of sense of community because you're receiving video or video content the way that works for you. It kind of does give way to just really interesting and exciting assistive technology, I think.
When you talk about personalization, obviously the next thing that often follows is concerns about privacy and worry about ethics and things like that. I know, we're not at the cutting edge of all of this, and there's a lot smarter people than us thinking about the ethics and regulation of AI. But I mean, just quickly, what are your general concerns with kind of AI, either from a kind of privacy point of view or otherwise?
There's just so much mis and fake information out there, and that's what's feeding a lot of the AI models. So, we have a responsibility to fact check, right? And I think a lot of people nowadays don't. Like, you see an image, like the Pope wearing, I don't know, Balenciaga or something, and you're like, oh yeah, that's real. So you kind of, I think as people, we have the responsibility to really just fact check the things that we see. And I don't think that we will all do that. So that is a big concern with a lot of the AI generated material that's coming out.
Yeah, and it's reassuring that tech companies are trying to develop things to sense out deep fakes and to try and uncover that fake material. But I think with AI generating this level of content, what we're going to see, and it's going to be a challenge for everyone, is the real increase of content that's out there and the noise that you have to get through to actually have your brand voice heard. So it's more important than ever to have that really creative content be able to stand out from all the other pieces of content that sound very samey.
I think with AI, it's going to increase the content creator economy that we've sort of been seeing over the past few years, right? A lot of individuals can very easily now become video creators or become content creators because of tools like Adobe or just programs that make it very much, simpler to create really nice content. And I think AI is only going to drive that and add more, people into the industry. And I think that what that also creates as well is just, again, a lot of noise. So you're going to see a lot of AI generated video or a lot of just video and images being helped by AI, but then be augmented by people, by, real kind of everyday users. And I think it's really important for clients like ours to figure out, again, how do we create content that stands out from all this noise?
Not just unique to video production, but it's, a company's prerogative to be able to push advance, and expand the diversity, equity, and inclusion in our comms that we produce. So the fact that AI is getting to a point where it recognizes, what's popular or what's mainstream, it knows how to produce it and sort of who to show it to. It starts to kind of homogenize that structure, and that's pretty terrible in terms of creativity. We need to be able to grow that. By its very nature, AI has the inability to catch its own biases, and so it does need human input to be able to moderate and mediate that.
Okay, so to try and pull kind of some of these thoughts together, thinking about this from the client point of view, what would each of you like our clients to be aware of? What is the one key takeaway, or what should they be aware of when it comes to AI?
Yeah, I guess from me, it's as I said, for everyone. I think clients also need to embrace the technology and really to understand it, and to make sure that the partners that you're working with are transparent, right, about whether or not they are also embracing the technology. Because again, it's nothing to sort of put a stigma on or kind of steer away from, right? You want to work with people who are really understanding its limitations and using it to, again, create better products, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing for us, is to continue to create really great videos for our clients. And AI can be a huge part of that, but it's just about, learning and figuring out how is it a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, on the whole, it's super exciting because it totally democratizes, content creation in the same way that social media did. Someone with a smartphone and a social platform is suddenly a filmmaker. And that same principle applies here where, these prompts are determined by human experience and knowledge. So you can tell this thing that you want, chiaroscuro lighting from the Baroque era paintings and refine it from there. So you can see how that quality of input is really crucial. And I guess one interesting point to consider in the creative stage is just how this might kind of perpetuate biases. So if this algorithm is giving greater relevance to frequency and data, it may lead to not just outdated ideas, but just really boring work. So a mid-journey prompt of a person at work returns imagery of men in tall buildings staring out windows. So in the creative sense, we really need to lean on this, diverse inputs and experience to output relevant and inclusive and expansive creative ideas.
And for us internally, and I guess for all other production companies and content creators out there, I think the real takeaway is there's some comfort in the fact that AI is not going to replace video production. But what you have to do is stay across it, is experiment, is try and use some of these tools as they come out in your workflow, because AI won't replace video production altogether, but video producers using AI will be replacing video producers that don't use AI. And that's, only a matter of time. So it's just very, very important to keep your toe in, keep trying, to keep experimenting, to kind of assess these tools as they come out, changing so fast as well. This whole conversation could be irrelevant tomorrow. But to do your best to try and stay across it, and to, where you can, take these little bits and pieces, insert them in your existing workflow, and continue forward like that. And on that note, just want to thank you guys very much for your time. I hope you out there have found that interesting. If there are any questions about AI and video production, or just video production generally, do drop us a note through the website. We'll be happy to continue the conversation further. Thanks for listening.